This is Kerrigan & Company. Why have a job when you can have a purpose? The Northeast Arc is now hiring ABA providers dedicated to supporting individuals with autism and related developmental disabilities. Work in a collaborative environment with room for professional growth. Northeast Arc offers generous benefits, including flexible work locations and tuition assistance. Visit ne-arc.org/careers to view job opportunities and apply. That's ne-arc.org/careers. Hi, everybody. This is Kim. This week, we're talking unsolved crimes. You don't want to miss it. This is Kerrigan & Company.
Kerrigan & Company is here for you. Yes, Kerrigan & Company is here for you.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Kerrigan & Company. So good to have you with us today, and we have a terrific show for you. Keeping me company today is someone that I've known. I started going through the years, and it's been quite a few years, so we won't even get into that. He's a longtime friend and colleague. Bob Ward from Fox 25 is with me. Hello.
Hey, Kim. It's great to see you again. We haven't seen each other in such a long time.
Know. It's really Boston 25, but it's Fox 25 to me forever. You know that,
me
right?
Too, right. Exactly. It's like this is still the Boston Garden out here, right?
Right, exactly. We're still at the Boston Garden. I mean, come on.
Exactly, exactly.
It's great to see you.
It's great seeing you, too.
Yeah.
And congratulations with this. This is great.
Isn't it fun?
Yeah.
It's so fun. And I think you're going to have a great time while you're here. We made sure that we put together a show. And we always try to put together a show, for the co-host that's sort of interesting to them. And I think we've done a pretty good job. Peter Gammons is going to join us. And I know, I said to my producer, Bob is a baseball fan like nobody's business. I mean, honestly, you're one of my biggest Red Sox fans that I know. So a guy who on opening day usually says, yep, we're headed to
We're going to go.
October baseball's coming.
My lineage is when I was a kid, I was at game one of the first World Series in 75. Not old enough to remember the 67, but 75. I was a kid, and my brother and I were invited by our neighbors to go to the game. Tiant pitch, so we were at that game.
Oh my gosh!
A few years later, I was actually at Fenway for the Bucky Dent game.
Oh my goodness,
and that was brutal.
Bob.
That was brutal. It was like it scarred me for a generation.
I didn't know that you were there.
And then bringing it forward, I was lucky enough working for Fox 25. They sent me to go cover not just 04, but 03, which set up 04.
Sure.
And it was just an amazing ride. So, you live and die with the Red Sox. And before that, I was dying with the Red Sox constantly.
Well, that's it. I mean, true fans, they had a lot of really tough years, but finally. And I know we're going to talk to Peter Gammons, and when we do, we'll ask him, what he thinks about this team. I think they're exciting and fun.
I do too.
Time will tell, right?
Yeah. I think they've got a personality. They're very likable. And let's see. And I think they have the raw talent. So let's see how far it takes them. I'm not going to say World Series.
Yep.
But I do think they'll at least stay interesting through the summer, which is really all I want. I hate it when they're out of it by May 1st.
I know. It's such a disappointment. And it's a long
really
season.
Long season.
Then,
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
They sit in the toughest division in all of baseball, though.
Right.
I mean, it is amazing that, yeah. I mean, it's amazing that, when the season is all said and done, there's teams in other divisions that are winning with the number of wins that, number 2 or 3 in this division has.
Right.
So it's exciting, though. It's great, and I'm excited about it, and it'll be fun, and I'll be thinking about you. We'll have to text one another throughout the course of the season.
Exactly.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So how's life been at Boston 25?
It's been great. We're still plugging away.
Yep.
I've been there since 96 when they started Fox 25 or Fox News Boston, it was called back then. And we're still putting together New England's Unsolved. That hit 25 years not too long ago.
Wow, Bob.
So we're still plugging away and still, doing our best and trying to make a difference out there.
Let me ask you, when you decided that you would get into journalism, how you were so drawn to this criminal side like this and doing these unsolves?
Yeah, it's all been an evolution for me. If you had seen me in high school, you would never think I would end up on television because I, was shy. I had the thick Boston accent. I had the long hair back in the 70s. And you would never think of me as doing this. And the one thing that always I had that I worked on developing was my writing skills and trying to develop that into something. And so I graduated from Emerson, and when I first gravitated towards Emerson, I wanted to do more print writing. And while I was there, I just kind of drifted over to the broadcast side. You try your skill, luck at different things,
Right.
and that's what I did. And they taught me how to get rid of the accent, how to clean myself up and look presentable, and all those sorts of things. And then I just stuck with it. And as far as crime reporting goes, I find personally crime stories pretty much have it all. They have the drama of daily life.
Right.
They have these incredible things happen to ordinary people, and they're tragic. And then you have the resiliency of the survivors and what they go through. And I just find all aspects of it, from the time that something happens, right through if they're lucky enough to have an arrest and go through trial and aftermath. I think it's just really interesting. There's so many different forms of crime to cover. So, most of what I cover is going to be violent crime, but, we're going to have Anthony Amore on here to talk about the Gardner heist.
Right.
And, that's not a violent, well, there is violence in the aftermath of it, but the crime itself was not an act of violence. But it's fascinating.
It is.
And people can't seem to get enough of it, and we've seen that with the rise of true crime.
Yeah. I think crime sort of ebbs and flows, too, with what's going on in society.
Yeah.
Like right now, I think we see a lot of people really frustrated, and it feels like to me when I'm sitting down to watch news or read the newspaper, I'm just reading more and more about crime and crime and crime.
Right.
Even in wonderful cities like ours, it's really hard to keep frustrated people from committing crimes.
And it's interesting, too, you say that. And our city is statistically very safe.
Right.
And because I'm into this crime world, I'm always seeing it the other way. And so when somebody shows me the statistics, I kind of have to pause for a minute
Right.
because I've just been with a family that's just been impacted by it. But in other places, it's a different story. And I think some of the big homicide cases that are now in the news, they've also spawned industries of people that are trying to get a handle on what happened in true crime communities.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll come up with an alternative view of what they think actually happened. We're seeing that in our own backyard.
Absolutely.
But we're also seeing it in other cities as well. So it's a fascinating time. And I think, we live in an uncertain time, and people are just trying to make things make sense.
You bet.
And they want to see a sense of justice out there. And you don't always get justice.
No, unfortunately you don't, even though we all think that is what is the end result. Talk to me about a crime that has stayed with you. I mean, that's a really hard one because you've been doing this for so long, like you said.
No, there is
but
one.
There's got to be one that has really stayed with you.
And I say that there are a lot of them that stay with me. So the one I'm going to talk about is close to me for personal reasons, but a lot of them. I don't want anyone that I've done, I've covered and I've become a part of people's lives in the crime community. But the one that it actually started it all for New England's Unsolved was somebody that I knew. Her name was Teresa Corley, and she was 19 years old when she was murdered, and she was found naked on the side of Route 495 in Bellingham, and that case is still unsolved. I knew her because we briefly worked together at a Star Market. I was a bag boy and she was a cashier, and she was a couple years older than me, and she was strangled and left on the side of the road. So when we started New England's Unsolved, before it even had a name, I was tasked with finding 4 cases that we could profile. I wanted to cover Teresa's case because I wanted to know what happened to her.
Right.
And we've pushed the bar on that case pretty far. When I first got involved, nobody paid attention to Teresa's case. It was forgotten. Her family didn't forget. Her family, she has brothers and sisters, and at the time her mother was still alive. They didn't forget, but the media had forgotten. And if the media forgets, then that means the police might forget. The general public is going to forget. And over the years, I've done all these stories on Teresa's case. We've developed new information, and one of her sisters is extremely active in making sure that the case it doesn't get forgotten, and she is very public about it. And I would love to see something shake loose there because I do think that case is solvable. I think she was murdered in 1978. I think the case should have been solved in 1979, but it hasn't been. And from just my experience covering her case, it gave me insight into how cold cases are investigated, what happened in the 1970s with forensics and how it didn't exist back then, how it exists now. That same case now, I think, would be solved almost overnight.
Sure, absolutely.
So that is the
you know
one
what that
I'd
leads
like
me
to see.
I'm sure, and I understand that. That leads me to my next question, which is, are there more unsolved cases that existed 30 years ago versus now? Do you think cases are much more readily solved?
I do think so, because there are all kinds of cases out there where You have strangers murdering somebody, and there's nothing connecting the two people.
Right.
Back then, anyway. But now you have DNA, and that changes the equation. And you will see cases, it's becoming a regular occurrence now, where one of the DAs here will announce an arrest in a case from the 1960s or the 1970s, or at least we've uncovered this information, and here we go. The Boston Strangler is one of them right here in Boston a few years ago. That happened with DNA from DeSalvo. So it does happen. But these cases back in the day, from what I understand, they suffered from the fact that we did not have modern forensics. We also had local police departments investigating homicides.
Right.
So the whole field has become more professional than it was back then. And then you can never rule out the possibility of corruption down the road. You never know who knew who, and somebody covered something up and destroyed evidence. I'm sure that happened in some of these old cases.
Absolutely.
But the good news is that all these decades later, there is a serious attempt from these DAs and the state police to try to get somewhere on these cases.
To use some of that modern technology.
It is extremely frustrating, though. And of course, for these families that have been waiting decades for answers, it's not moving fast enough.
Absolutely. Bob, how many cases have you reported on or you've watched that in the end the wrong person went to jail?
Not many.
Not many.
Not many.
Yeah, I mean, it does happen. We know that. It has happened.
Yeah.
But I just, again, these would have been cases usually that happened in the 70s or the early 80s
Right.
before we were using DNA on a regular
Right.
basis.
No, it's-
and DNA is what ultimately frees them.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there have been a few. There have been a few. Now that I think about it, you're putting me on the spot here because I don't think
That's
about
okay.
it very
I don't
often.
mean to do that.
There are a couple of people that I've done stories on whose cases were exonerated years later. And I think where I'm getting hung up is those are cases that happened before my time that I didn't even do stories on.
Sure.
Because they were over and done.
Yep.
But then these other cases come up, and innocent people who have served decades in prison have been released. But I still stand by it's not many. I think there may be maybe 5 that I've come across that I've covered.
I guess more frequently they just remain unsolved.
Yeah. Well, if somebody is arrested and they're sent away to prison, then for authorities, it's case closed. We don't need to look at it again. And it's extremely difficult to get any law enforcement to take a second look at something once the case has been closed up and sealed up.
Now, you talked about the young woman who was your friend and was killed in 70, I think you said 8.
1978.
Give me another more recent case that you're watching and that
I'll
you're
tell you, how
somewhat
about,
surprised about.
Two, Molly Bish and Holly Paranen.
Yeah, I know.
You know, they break your heart. These 2 girls disappeared in central Massachusetts. Holly Paranen first, and then Molly Bish afterwards. And they were taken, and they were murdered. Their bodies were found. Molly's case was 3 years later. With Holly's case, it was a few months later. And here we are all these years later, and we still don't have definitive word on what happened to them. And how can I just talked to Holly's family recently, and they had a death. Holly's mother just passed away. So I was in touch with the family about that. And you just grieve it. You just imagine that mother,
Had
passed
happened,
away
right.
and never found out who took her daughter. And you can't ignore the fact that these 2 girls were living in the same part of the state. They were both blonde girls. Were they taken by the same person? I know their names are similar, but geographically they're in the same part of the state. And you wonder if something was going on back then, if the same person or people were somehow involved in both. We don't know.
Yeah. The tough part about those cases, too, is that as time goes by, your chances of that perpetrator being dead start to get better and better and better. And then the secret dies with that individual in a lot of cases.
There's another case going on right now that within the last couple of weeks that I've been covering for a long time and hasn't gotten a lot of attention. And it's the victim's name is Miguel Olivares, a young Boston guy. And he disappeared up in Portland, Maine. And the FBI recently held a press conference up in Maine offering a reward, and now they're getting involved. He's been gone 18 years.
Wow.
And his mother has been in touch with me over all that time. I've done several stories on this case. It's just absolutely strange and not getting anywhere with anyone.
Yeah.
And we just kept doing it. And finally, she pushed the right buttons up in Maine. There were retirements, too. The police officers who were involved back in the day, they retired, and then it didn't get the attention that it deserved. But then suddenly she found someone up in Maine who took up the cause, got the FBI involved, and so maybe something will come from that.
Yeah.
So basically what happened to Miguel, if you just give me a sec.
Sure.
He was living here in Boston. He kind of had a chaotic life, and he had a former girlfriend who was a dancer at a strip club up in Portland, Maine. And they weren't seeing each other, and then one day, she called him and said, I need you to come up. I want you to come up to Maine and watch me dance. And he didn't want to go. Then he was involved with somebody else. He had kids with somebody else. And she said, I will pay for your bus fare. And up he goes. He gets to the club. There's a disturbance while he's there. He is asked to leave the club. And there's video of him being escorted out of the club called the Platinum Plus in Portland, Maine. And that's the last anyone has ever seen of him. So how does that happen?
Wow.
So
yeah,
she goes
strange.
up to Maine, and they say, well, he's a Boston guy. That's a Boston case. Boston says that's a Portland, Maine case. So she was involved in that for a while. Plus, when adults go missing, it's not like when a child goes missing. No one seems to take things seriously, but it's only taken all this time. And then finally now the FBI is involved, and they had a press conference, and I think there's a $10,000 reward. I would love to see her. The mom's name is Myrna Gonzalez. I would love to see Myrna get some justice here.
Absolutely.
She's been grieving. She calls me every year on the anniversary. Bob, it's another year. Can you do another story?
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't. Well, who could ever imagine, living your life,
can't.
wondering where that young person, what their last hours were about. It's just a horrific thing.
Right.
All right. You're going to stay with us,
Absolutely.
right? I'm so glad you're here. And we're going to chat with Peter Gammons after the break. It's going to be a lot of fun. So you stay with us as well, and Bob and I will meet you on the other side. This is Kerrigan and Company.
Have you tried Rumson Rum yet? This smooth, sweet, memorable rum is distilled in the Caribbean, barreled aged, and then blended, finished, and bottled in Salem, Massachusetts. Rumson's offers 4 unique blends: Gold, Spice, Grand Reserved, and Coffee. Before you start to sip or mix your next cocktail, ask yourself, do I want to enjoy New England's most awarded rum brand? If the answer is yes, the answer is Rumson's. Get Rumson's rum at liquor stores or ask for it by name at your favorite restaurant. Rumson's. Life lived, life enjoyed.
This segment of Kerrigan and Company is brought to you by Lucia Lighting and Design, where people in the know go for the best possible lighting and design experience. Welcome back, everybody, to Kerrigan and Company. Of course, keeping me company today is my longtime friend, Bob Ward. And this is really fun. I'm so glad to see you.
I'm thrilled to be here, Kim.
I see you on TV, but I need to see you in person.
Same.
So it's really great, and it's great to get caught up. We are about to have the presence of royalty, in my opinion, baseball royalty, and
no doubt about
certainly
it.
Journalism.
Right.
Here on the show with us. Peter Gammons is our guest. And Peter, it is great to see you.
Well, thank you very much. It's really kind of you to take me on in the middle of the day.
Well, for people who don't know a little bit about your history, let's share a little bit of it. So Peter is a longtime baseball writer. He wrote for the Globe 2 separate times. He's written for Sports Illustrated. He was on ESPN for a very long time. He was a sideline reporter. I could go on and on, Peter. Do you want me to, or is that good enough?
I just had a lot of fun. It's what I always wanted to do, so I got to do it. So I'm lucky.
But you had a knack of just bringing things down to the basics and explaining what's going on that I think escaped a lot of other writers. And that's what I always admired about you as I read your work, trying to figure out what was really going on beyond, as a fan.
Right,
I'm a Red Sox fan, lifelong Red Sox fan, and trying to figure out the Red Sox-Yankees thing and why can this team never win and what's going on elsewhere in Major League Baseball. And Peter, I always could trust as someone that would just tell me the truth, which I think is so important in all aspects of journalism.
Well, it's sometimes I worry that we've lost a little bit of the sense of truth in our society, but that to me that's like losing gravity. So hopefully we'll all get back to it and we'll be back to normal in the next couple of years. So, and live our lives as we had lived them so long.
Let's hope.
So, Peter, I want to ask you about this current Red Sox team. I mean, I can't have you here and not do that. Bob and I were talking about it before we jumped on the air. I was saying that actually this last weekend I was, really watching every single play because I'm originally from St. Louis. So, of course, the Cardinals were in town, and my parents are back in St. Louis, and they're huge fans. And my husband and I have become, of course, Red Sox fans. So it was a lot of fun, and it was a great weekend for those of us who love the Red Sox, not so much for my side of the family who love the Cardinals. But they look like a really young team that has finally built some foundation, and there could really be something here.
I really believe so. I think it's a very good observation because I really felt it. I mean, the opening day it just sort of felt all around. I think the fans could feel it. I mean, when Alex Bregman came here, he's like, when he was 11 years old, he adopted Dustin Pedroia, playing for Arizona State, as his idol. They're so much alike. The way they treat teammates, the way they lead the team, they're very important. But the trade for Crochet to get that one really good pitcher. But I think a lot has changed. There was, after they got Bregman in the deal, there was a picture that Linda Henry posted above her husband, John Henry. So falling asleep, smoking a cigar, he looks so happy. And my thought immediately was, John Henry, it's been not a great last 5 years. He obviously looked as if he was remembering, this is why I love baseball. And I think that everything up and down that organization has been that way this year. And Alex Cora has done a phenomenal job pulling players together, but they have these young guys. Christian Crawford he's one of the most fascinating young guys, not only because his father is a high school history teacher and he's really intelligent, but he's just a fun kid. Wilyer Abreu in right field is a phenomenal player. Could easily be starting right fielder in the American League. Well, as long as it's not Aaron Judge, starting right fielder in the All-Star game. And a guy that is just now at 25, really emerging as a star player. They have a lot of guys like that, and there's the sense of positivity. I thought, which is sometimes hard to maintain in Boston. I mean, I can remember in the 70s, the city was tough, but it was sometimes very hard to maintain that enthusiasm. They got it back later in the 70s, but then it kind of disappeared again. It goes and comes, especially when you're in the heart of the city. At least in Foxborough, you can disappear and drive away from the city. You don't have to hear it. But I really feel it. I think they're going to be really good. I think the Red Sox, Yankees, Tampa are all going to be really good teams in the American League East. I don't think anybody's going to win much more than 90 games because they're all so good at the top of the division. But it'll be really fun. I mean, there was a thing today on MLB Network about Tampa Bay has the hardest throwing pitching staff in the history of baseball.
Wow.
And which is pretty interesting.
Yes.
And it just, I think it makes for a lot of fun. I mean,
absolutely.
Tampa, obviously. Tampa's playing in the Yankee minor league, in Tampa, in the Yankee spring training stadium.
Right.
But they also might have the best clubhouse in the entire American League. The Yankees spent a lot of money to make the Rays feel very happy there. It's kind of good. I mean, I think I think we're finally over the COVID period, which really set the game back. Remember, they didn't have fans in the stands. They had cardboard cutouts of fans.
Remember that?
In seats and
piped in fans.
Piped in fans,
sound.
the audio. Peter, I was at opening day covering just the fans and the whole pageantry of opening day for Boston 25 News last week. And I usually draw that assignment. I love doing that. I just love being out there because usually I'm at a crime scene. I'm in the middle of tragedy all around me. So once a year when the Fenway home opener comes up, I want to be there and go out and just talk to the fans and see what they're thinking. And I agree with you. There's something different this time. And I'm trying not to let myself get carried away with this. I don't want to be a typical Boston fan and think we're going to win the World Series now. However, there is a spark out there among the fan base that wasn't there last year when I was there. And that was the year they were celebrating the 2004 team.
Right.
So at the end, when I was doing my last live shot on Friday night, it was 6 o'clock, and people were lining up to see the players as they emerged. And they were just starting to leave at around, I think, at around 6:15 when my live shot was. And there was just like this ripple of electricity over there from all these people waiting to see the team. Yeah. And it has been, a long time 2018 maybe, the World Series, maybe 21. But really, that opening day enthusiasm, I think, I sense a turn. And I think you're right, Peter. And I hope they're still relevant all the way through the summer.
I think they will be. I think this is, I think there's just such a change. I mean, with, I get this sense of not cockiness, but just, gee, we're having a lot of fun here, and playing in Boston should be fun,
right?
I mean that's that crowd. They usually have somewhere 25 to almost 40,000 people in the ballpark. When they're doing well, the place is electric. It's the things like the monster seats and some of the stuff in the bleachers. It's a really fun park. I mean, Toronto, as we speak, is in town, and now a couple of their players, they grew up as Red Sox fans. George Springer in Connecticut, and they talk about that. Fenway used to be a great place, but they made it really good again, and they made it modern and made it fun. And obviously, they put a great deal. Tom Menino used to say, "Who else has ever put money like this into a ballpark?" But it was the right thing. They made a lot of money with it too.
Absolutely.
But it's just make the place a place you want to go and have fun and enjoy it. And I'll tell you what I always see, too, is people from other cities want to come to Boston and go to the ballpark. Last year, down the stretch, the Red Sox weren't playing very well. But they played, I believe it was the Yankees, the Phillies, and San Diego. And in each one of those series, there were more fans on the road than there were at home. Yeah. Because, hey, their teams were playing well. They want to go to Boston. They have a lot of fun. I couldn't believe some of the fans from San Diego, because that is a great park to go to. It's on the ocean. It's all the rest. They were going, oh, this is the greatest place to go. I mean, we save up. We wait during the year. If the Padres are playing the Red Sox in Boston, we have to go.
They have to get here.
And it's a trip. And it's a good thing I also think it's great for the city of Boston.
Of course it is. Yeah. I'll tell you, I was at one of those Yankees games down the stretch, and it was crazy. The Let's Go Yankees was louder than Let's Go Red Sox at that point. So it really gives you a sense, of what I know.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I know.
I want. We've got to talk about hot music, cool, or hot stove, music. Cool music. Yeah. I'm going to get it out here in just a second. But before we do, one last thing just about this team. I think one of the things that I've really heard a lot of people say, and I actually spoke to Tim Zhu, the CFO, and he said it too. He said, I think people get a sense that this management, for a while, when we watched Mookie leave and we watched, some of these key players leave, people started to question whether this management really was interested in baseball anymore. And I think with some of these these people that they picked up this year and acquiring some of these guys, it's really put faith back in this management as well from the stands. And I think people are very excited about that. So we'll see, right? It's
absolutely
fun. Have to play the games now.
Yeah,
have to play the games.
So let's talk about Hot Stove. You are one of the founders.
It's been amazing. We started really just as sort of a lark for the Jimmy Fund, for Mike Andrews, who was such a huge figure in building the Jimmy Fund. And but this is our 25th year of doing it here. We also have done it about 12 years in Chicago. But it's become a staple, and we really enjoy it. Well, we really love it, and we in 2004 when Paul and Theo Epstein started the foundation named later, we all hooked up together with it, and it's been really fun. I mean, I think it's been probably 10 or 12 years that Bernie Williams has come every time and played with us.
Isn't that amazing?
He's
Bernie
amazing.
Williams.
I mean, we actually had a really fun time one time. He and I got to play with Buddy Guy in Chicago, which was, for both of us, one of the great thrills of our lives. But so we got done, Buddy went off the stage. Bernie came across the stage, gave me a hug, and said, "Peter, this is the greatest thing I've ever done." Now, he's got 4 World Series rings, 2 batting titles, 3 Gold Gloves, 3 Grammys. I mean, but that's the fun of music. And one of the great things is that music is just you play to the moment. And it's great to live to the moment once in a while. And we've had a lot of fun doing that over the years with a lot of people that have come in from out of town to play with us and so forth. And Derek Trucks, who I think is the greatest guitar player who ever lived, actually pitched in the first game I ever went to at Fenway Park in 1952. He pitched for the Tigers in that game. So,
Peter,
so
I just want to ask you, 25 years is an amazing accomplishment to do anything. But did you ever think 25 years ago that you would be able to say the sentence that you just did? I was on stage playing with Bernie Williams and Buddy Guy, and I thought, blah, blah, blah. What? That's a full stop sentence right there. Did you ever think that?
Really
I mean, this just has taken off and grown exponentially to be this beloved event now. It's happening this weekend in Boston.
Absolutely.
It's just amazing how that it took off and combining the love for music and the love for baseball.
And most important, I think, is that it's become such a part of the foundation to be named later. I mean, they were very kind to name their scholarship, our scholarship program in my name, Peter Gammons Scholars. And I mean, it's amazing. We have over 350 scholars and a 1% dropout rate.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Every time we're with them, and everything we do, we're reminded, you know what? It's all about opportunity. It's about hope. It's about positivity. Mm-hmm. And these kids, we have an annual dinner in January. And what was amazing is how many of the people that we have helped go to college, they're talking about what do they want to do? What are they doing? And what fascinated me was that almost everyone who spoke talked about, well, we want to be able to serve other people the way we got served. We want to have opportunities that we can create for other people. To me, I mean, I said to Paul Epstein, I think that those kids are giving the greatest testament as to what you and Theo and Elise have done for our city. And I tell you, guy was just a tremendous. Well, the former governor, he actually was a mentor to several of the kids that we had. But also, Mayor Menino was unbelievable. Yeah. And no matter where we went to do some fundraising of some sort, maybe go to a concert, bring the kids to a concert at Fenway Park or whatever, he would always be there and he'd put his arm around me and say, "Thank you for loving our city." And I do, but at the same time, it's I think what they did when they started this in 2004 is that they also brought politicians to realize, you know what, this is what it's about. It's all about opportunity and hope. And I think it's really, I'm really proud to be a part of it. Not an important part, but a part.
Well, you're an important part of it, Peter, and that's very humble for you to say. Listen, I'm getting the rap signal. You know what that looks like. You've seen it 100 times.
Yes.
You want to pick something up and throw it at the producer, but you can't. But before we go, I just want to ask you something. How is a guy who is so incredibly talented as a journalist, so incredibly talented as a musician? I mean, you really have 2 careers in your life that you could have followed easily. I really mean that.
I'm good at finding other musicians who are really talented. So I can play, but I could fake it a little bit.
Well, I don't see too much faking going on. Listen, we are so glad that you could be a part of the show today. Thank you so much. And we want to remind everybody that Hot Stove Cool Music, it actually takes place at the Paradise. It takes place on the 12th of April, and the VIP event is the night before. Cheap Trick's going to be here. Those guys have been a part of it, I know, many years. And, of course, always just raising money for a really great cause. So, Peter, thank you very much. And when we start playing October baseball, you'll be back, right?
I will be here.
Okay.
Thanks, Peter. Great to meet you.
Thanks, Peter, very much.
Thank you very much.
You
Bye-bye.
bet. This is Kerrigan and Company. Well, we did it. We survived another New England winter. As the days get longer, it's time to plan ahead and think about landscape and outdoor lighting. My friends at Lucia Lighting and Design in Lynn can help you get your landscape and outdoor living spaces ready for summer. They'll work with you to plan a space that's well lit, comfortable, and secure. After all, outdoor lighting is like adding a room to your home. Get started by going to lucialighting.com and then make an appointment to visit their beautiful showroom in Lynn, Massachusetts. That's lucialighting.com. Celebrate inclusion and have a blast doing it at the Northeast Arc's annual Evening of Changing Lives Gala. I'm thrilled that I'll be returning to MC this event at Encore Boston Harbor. I hope you'll join me on Tuesday, April the 8th, to support an organization that helps people with disabilities live as fully included members of their community. The event features a cocktail reception and an inclusive fashion show. Visit ne-arc.org/gala to buy tickets and explore sponsorship opportunities. That's ne-arc.org/gala. Have you heard the news? The 2025 season is on sale now at Bill Haney's North Shore Music Theater. The season begins with The Shark is Broken, a new play about the making of Jaws. Then you won't want to miss the Broadway musical Waitress, followed by the magical production of The Wizard of Oz, an electrifying production of Grease, and the Pulitzer Prize winning phenomenon Rent, and finally the dazzling production of The Cher Show. Tickets and discount subscription packages are on sale now at nsmt.org. Don't miss a single show. This segment of Kerrigan and Company is brought to you by Bill Haney's North Shore Music Theater. Learn all about this year's shows at nsmt.org. Welcome back, everybody, to Kerrigan and Company. It was great to have Peter Gammons, that's for sure. Keeping me company today is my friend Bob Ward. He's terrific, isn't he?
Oh, Peter was the best. It was the best. I've seen him from afar when I'm at events at Fenway Park and everything. I never got the chance to actually meet him and talk to him.
Yeah.
So that was just great.
I'm so glad that you were here for that. You bet. Hot Stove, cool music. It really is. It's awesome. It's about music. It's about baseball, and it's about giving back.
Right.
And it really
life doesn't give you many opportunities to give back in the way that they have, in a meaningful way. When he talked about how this connects with the people that they've given the money to and how they've turned around and they're trying to pass this along to another generation, that's what life is all about.
You know what I love too? I will say this. I know a lot of people in Boston don't want to hear this, but obviously Theo went to Chicago, and so Theo took this with him, this idea. But really, Chicago and Boston have a lot of things that are in common. Yeah. They're those kinds of cities that are a little bit gritty, but really feel strongly about their own. And so it's not surprising to me that it's done as well as it has in Chicago as well.
They're crazy about baseball. They have
They're
a thriving
crazy
music
about
scene. Sounds like Boston to me.
And
then
really
they took our general manager who brought them their first World Series in decades.
He certainly did.
All those parallels are there, sure.
Absolutely. It's really good. It's good. So check it out if you haven't had an opportunity to do so. I asked Bob, I said, Bob, as an investigative reporter, who would you like to interview? Who's somebody that you think would be interesting? And you brought us our next guest, I'm really excited about this.
That's right.
So
Anthony Amore, who is the head of security, most people would know from the Gardner Museum here in Boston. He has spent the last, 20 years?
20 years, yep.
20 years.
When you guys were 8.
Yes, when we were 8.
Trying to find the artwork that's been stolen from the Gardner Museum 35 years ago. I like to think of the Gardner heist as Boston's last great mystery. Once Whitey Bulger was caught, what else is out there that we don't know? And it's the Gardner heist. It is still there. So I wanted to have Anthony on because we just hit the 35th anniversary of the heist.
On the 18th of March.
On the 18th of March.
Yeah.
And they had an event at the museum where they restored the frames, the original frames, and hung the empty frames up in the Dutch room. And we were there to cover that. Now, the empty frames have always been hanging in the Dutch room, right? They've just been
Since
restored.
about 1995, I believe, they decided to put them back up.
And if you've ever been, everybody should go to the Gardner Museum, but when you walk into the Dutch room and see those empty frames, for me anyway, hits me in the gut. It's like being at a crime scene. And so to see them go back up on the walls was kind of eerie. I made a little video off my phone. I posted it. It's up on my webpage. And a month later, I am still getting people talking about it and reacting to that simple little video. So when you asked me, I thought, there's a lot of interest in the Gardner heist.
Absolutely.
And it's still missing. And Anthony, the biggest question everybody has is, other than where is it, are we ever going to find it, or is all this priceless artwork, is it just gone?
Oh, no, we're definitely going to find it. I'm going to find it.
You take me with you.
Sure, be my first call. You and Shelley Murphy both say the same thing to me all the time. Hey, I'm going to be your first call, right?
Right.
Well, and you would be, because the both of you are the best crime reporters in the city, without a doubt. But, I've talked to you about this a number of times, that when masterpieces like these go missing, it's not uncommon for them to be recovered a generation later, because the people involved, the scariest people involved, or the most dangerous people involved, pass away, or they're not so powerful anymore, or people become emboldened about speaking. We've uncovered a heck of a lot of information. We believe we know who took the paintings, but unfortunately, history also tells us that knowing who took masterpieces does not necessarily lead you to them. So all that matters for me is, where are they right now?
Right.
I don't really care who took them. I just want to know, where are they sitting right now as we sit here, so I can go and get them.
So, Anthony, do you talk about who took them?
I try not to get into individual names, because I don't want to inhibit anybody in the public who might know something different.
Right.
I worry that someone will hear me say a name or two and say, oh, I must be wrong, and then never tell me.
Right.
So there are people who mention names, which is fine, but I like to keep it open for the public to come forward to me and tell me what they know.
But part of the story is the museum and the FBI have spoken publicly about.
Sure.
And that is, you get maybe not identifying who the two fake Boston cops were who talked their way into the museum, tied up the security guard, and then made off with the paintings. That is the thumbnail of the actual heist itself.
Right.
But without naming those names, but you have revealed names of the people behind the two fake Boston cops. Jeff Kelly, who was the head of the FBI's investigation, he has publicly named the two fake Boston cops. They're both dead. And so are the underworld figures who, his belief is, put them up to it and kind of orchestrated the whole thing. But all that is ancient history, 1990 now, right? Now it's, well, where did those paintings go after that?
Right.
Exactly.
And it's fascinating to me that for a time, they were in a mechanic's garage in Dorchester.
Possibly.
And then they may have gone, some of them may have gone up to Maine, Portland, Maine, and some of them may have gone down to Connecticut.
So let me just interject here. So does that mean, because in my mind, I just always think that they're in someone's private collection, hanging in a basement, and for whatever reason, they're hoarding them because they can't sell them, obviously, and they obviously can't show them to others, which is what most people want with a private collection. That's not the case. You don't think that's the case?
No, in fact, that's the conventional wisdom. That's what people, the ordinary person who
Anthony, I'm ordinary, so that's we understand that.
The typical person who's watched Hollywood versions of art theft and such, or read novels, that's what they believe, including investigators and police officers. But it's not the case. It's never been the case. You won't find an example of some rich person who passes away or gets caught with these stolen masterpieces in their collection. It's the stuff of fiction, which makes it a little harder for us, because so many people in the public think, the Sultan of Brunei has our paintings, or the Adnan Khashoggi, and they don't. The most likely scenario is that they're hidden in somebody's attic or crawl space or basement here in the greater Boston area. But that's a lot of locations. So it's a very difficult thing. It's unlike, Bob mentioned homicide cases. You investigate a homicide, you identify who you believe the evidence points to as having committed it, you turn it over to a prosecutor, and a jury decides. But in a case like this, you investigate who might have done it, you try to track where the paintings are, but until you have them, you have not solved it. So we have these empty frames that I see every day and hang over me. You dream about these things every single night, but it's motivating. And I do believe that all of this work and all of the effort on my part, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, will culminate in recovery.
And you believe they could theoretically still be in New England somewhere?
I believe the most likely scenario based on history, and I don't know, in this particular case, but if you look at history and you put all of these art heists under a bell curve, you're going to find that they are always within like a 60-mile radius. It's unlikely they moved.
There's a $10 million reward, Kim.
I know,
So
right.
if you go in your attic and all of a sudden Grandpa who passed away, you left this box and I look at it. What are these old paintings?
I can only hope. Anthony, why do people steal art like this then? I mean, I don't see what the financial gain is here. I don't see that it's someone who admires art. What is the purpose?
Well, think about your first instinct, though, that some rich person would buy them, right? So that's what the common thief thinks. They don't go to the library and research and do, make spreadsheets and databases what happens to this stuff when it's stolen.
Yep.
It's this sort of a crime of opportunity, because think about museums. We beg you to come in. We advertise, come see our stuff and stand there in front of it as long as you wish. And sometimes it gets stolen. And the people that steal it almost every time do it with a motive for money. It's incredibly rare to find a thief who steals masterpieces for a reason other than financial gain. The one example, though, the one glaring example is Miles Connor, who's from Massachusetts. He's the most unbelievable art thief in the history of the world. But other than that, it's always a profit motive. However, like you said, you can't sell them. So they find out very quickly the next morning on the news or in the newspaper, these paintings are way too valuable and too recognizable. So there's no market, which is the worst case scenario, because instead of shopping them out there to potential buyers, you put them behind a wall or you hide them from the world, and they sit there waiting for me. Or do you destroy
them?
Incredibly rare. They're too valuable and so easy to hide that you don't destroy them. So the last time a Rembrandt was stolen and destroyed was in the 1930s. So it doesn't really happen.
I thought that when Robert Gentile, who's the person that owned the house in Connecticut, when he passed away, that there'd be something shaking loose at that point, because they were able to. The FBI went to the house, they searched it, they dug up the ground, and they thought I talked to Brian Kelly, the prosecutor at the time, and he said we took that. We opened up the vault and there was nothing there; it was empty. But the other things that they did find were very disconcerting and very interesting, and that led you to believe that the paintings were there at some point. I really thought that something would shake loose. I actually did a story saying, is there something in his will? Is he bequeathing something to one of his kids or someone in his family? Go turn these in. There's $10 million for you. You'll get some money out of it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you would think that's where the money comes from now, is the reward.
We're the only buyers. The Gardner Museum is the one offering that reward. It's the biggest private reward in history. And we're the only way you can make money off of these things. The problem is that I have to try to convince whoever's holding them that it's safe to come forward, that they'll be treated fairly. And it's easy for me to sit here and say, but and that we're not, at least the museum, we're not interested in prosecution.
Is there any significance in the fact that the last sighting of any of these paintings that you, as an investigator, have any faith in is, maybe 20 years ago? There's no recent sighting that I know of that's been made public of somebody saying, I know at this point in time it was here. Like when Whitey Bulger went missing, we had that Where's Whitey map, and the FBI would periodically update it with different places that he was. It's not like that with the Gardner theft.
Right, because paintings, the obvious answer is paintings, when you hide them, they stay hidden. They don't need to go to CVS. They don't need milk. They don't need haircuts.
Right.
They just stay there.
Right.
So they're far more difficult to find than a fugitive.
Is it possible, the scenario that Bob put forth, though, that could happen, that someone could will these to an unknowing individual, someone who had no idea that Dad or Grandpa owned those, or has them, I should say. Is that a possibility?
Happens pretty often. In fact, a few years ago, a painting worth $110 million by Willem de Kooning was found in a home when the husband and the wife passed away. They had stolen it for themselves. It's a really odd art theft case. But, it's not going to be willed to somebody, but, grandpa passes away and he was a shady character and you're cleaning out the attic and stuff and you find something.
Right. Or on his deathbed, he whispers, check the attic.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And in this particular case, it seems like all the principal people from 1990 are now gone. And yet we're not seeing this. And is there anything behind that? Like, why is it that we're not seeing that? That now the principals are gone, they're dead. Why isn't the next generation now finding this and turning it in? Just get this out of my house. It'll show up. I have this fantasy that one day you're going to come to work and there's going to be this package sitting for you in the foyer, and there it is. All the artwork is somebody just dropped it off in the middle of the night.
That's happened, but the package includes like somebody's really bad rendering of the paintings or fraud.
Really?
You have people who come forward with fraudulent copies of the art and email them to me, and it's all manner of con men out there.
Yeah, absolutely. You feel good about it, though. You believe it will come back.
I would quit.
You've watched it around the world.
Yeah. Oh no, we work every single day on it in the FBI. Even though we lost Jeff to retirement, so talk to him every day, and we talk to the FBI every day, and it's very active. And I really do believe we're going to get them back. It's
very active. I find that interesting. So, I mean, every day someone's following leads somewhere.
Oh,
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, especially me. And Bob's right. There's a lot of people whose names have surfaced who passed away in 35 years. However, they have kids, and we know their addresses, and we can search the properties they were in. And we do a heck of a lot of, you put the person in the hub, and you work off the spokes of who they knew and who their mistresses were and who their estranged children are, and you interview them. And it's a lot of people. So we make a lot of progress. It's just a matter of, okay, I got my hand on it finally.
Kim, there was one story that we did a couple of years ago with Jimmy Marks. It was a name, low-level guy that was never in the discussion. And I talked to Anthony, I talked to the Lynn police about this guy, Jimmy Marks, who, through circumstance, was talking about in the months after the theft, was talking about how he had access to them. He may have even had one in his apartment up in Lynn. And he's murdered shortly thereafter by the same people that we're talking about with the theft.
Wow.
And we did that interview with you, 2-3 years ago, I think, when we produced that story. And they had just gone to that apartment searching for anything that might still be in the floorboards. I don't know if paint chips might survive or anything.
Something.
Trying to find something. And I remember standing out in front of Jimmy Marks's apartment all those years later, just thinking, it's the most unlikely place that you would expect that any, like a Rembrandt or a Vermeer might be.
Dentist office downstairs.
Yeah.
Dentist in the place, and it's got a big tooth hanging outside. And but what that's a good example of someone we worked on for many, many years until there was nowhere else to go. And then I said, well, maybe Bob with his New England Unsolved could help publicize this. So maybe something will come from that.
And it's part of it also makes sense in that some of the paintings that were taken or the sketches of the horses. Was that the Degas?
Yeah.
Jimmy took care of racing horses for these people that had possession of the paintings back in 1990. And that was one of the things. Like if you look at the artwork that was stolen, the Degas don't naturally fit in with the other things that were actually taken. And you wonder, did somebody take it? Did Jimmy want that taken because he liked horses?
Sure.
And it's just all sorts of it ties together.
Sure does.
But it's like a mirage. You're there, but the paintings are not. It's there for a moment, you can see it, but then all of a sudden it just disappears on you. It's fascinating.
Anthony, you are an author in addition. You've written how many? 5?
My 4th is coming out in November.
Fantastic. Tell us about that.
That's a book called The Rembrandt Heist. It's about Miles Connor. I've known Miles for a long time. Miles and his friend Al Dottley. In 1975, Miles robbed the MFA of a Rembrandt, the most valuable Rembrandt at the time, and robbed it to get out of trouble for a previous art theft. he stole this Rembrandt to give it back in exchange for leniency in his sentencing. And the story is about a Rembrandt theft, but it's more about friendship. And over the years, I've become friends with Miles and learned a heck of a lot from him and Al. So I'm excited about the book. It's just the hardest thing is that the story is so unbelievable. Writing it to make it believable for a general audience is difficult, but it's remarkable.
Yeah, fascinating. Absolutely. Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. That's one of many, and you can find most of those on Amazon, correct?
All of them, yep.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a part of the show.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, of course.
So interesting. After you call Bob, will you call me?
I will. We'll be here.
We're going to be back to wrap things up in just a moment. This is Kerrigan and Company. Have you heard the news? The 2025 season is on sale now at Bill Haney's North Shore Music Theater. The season begins with The Shark is Broken, a new play about the making of Jaws. Then you won't want to miss the Broadway musical Waitress, followed by the magical production of The Wizard of Oz, an electrifying production of Grease, and the Pulitzer Prize winning phenomenon Rent, and finally the dazzling production of The Cher Show. Tickets and discount subscription packages are on sale now at nsmt.org. Don't miss a single show. Spring is sprung, and for many of us, that means finally coming out of hibernation. Soon, there'll be the graduation parties and the weddings to attend, so why not get your skin ready for all the fun right now? Our friends at Sienna Aesthetic Spa in Beverly have some great springtime specials. Buy 2 hydrofacials, and you'll get the second treatment half off. And if you book a Botox treatment after your facial, each Botox unit is only $11. Don't wait. Book your treatment today. Go to SiennaAesthetics.com. That's SiennaAesthetics.com. This segment of Kerrigan and Company is brought to you by Sienna Aesthetics Medical Spa. Take years off your face with the very latest technologies at Sienna Aesthetics in Beverly. Well, it's that time of the show when we wrap things up, and boy, it's been a fun show. Anthony is fascinating.
It's just amazing. You know, it's amazing talking to him, and you get a different take on what happened at the Gardner, where that investigation is now, and what matters and what doesn't matter.
Well, you know, it never had occurred to me, Bob, until he said this, and then it makes complete, total sense. He said, we know who did it, but that's irrelevant at this point.
Yeah.
And I guess that really is true.
Right.
You know, that it doesn't really matter. And you and I were chatting about it before, and you were saying, you know, the 2 guys who were the fake cops, they're both dead because they were murdered shortly thereafter.
Right.
So they really are sort of irrelevant. And they probably were all along. They were just guys who were, you know, hired.
And the statute of limitation has run out on the actual theft itself.
Yeah.
So, you know, Anthony talks about how, you know, part of his job is if somebody has information, he has to talk them off the ledge of prosecution, trying to work this out to make them feel comfortable coming out from the shadows and getting the art back.
Hey, $10 million might make you feel pretty comfortable. So give that some
Yeah, no kidding. Wish
thought.
I knew where it was.
I wish I did too. You and I'll come forward for sure. Hey, Bob, before you go, we do this fun thing, Fast Five.
Okay.
So it's rapid fire questions, and we'd like for you to do it in 30 seconds. If you don't, a hook comes out and pulls you out. It's just really terrible. All right, here we go in 3, 2, and 1. What's one of the first things you usually say when you get out of bed in the morning?
It's another day. Let's go.
You keep it clean. That's good. What do you think is life's greatest unsolved mystery?
Is there more to life after death?
If you were the 8th dwarf, what would your name be?
Oh, no. If I was the 8th dwarf, what would my name be? I don't know. Mr. Cynical, I guess.
I would call you curious.
Oh, thank you.
What is one of your favorite movies?
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah. And what song gets you onto the dance floor when you're attending a wedding?
Ooh, I'm not much of a dancer, but maybe Shout.
I love it.
Great
That's
song.
so good.
Yeah.
That's
Not the chicken dance.
Yes. Well, that's one. I've got a story about the chicken dance that we don't need to tell. This has been so much fun. It's so
blast.
great to see you.
So great seeing you.
I am so glad that things are going well for you and your family, and everybody is
Everybody's
good.
safe and healthy and happy. So can't ask for more.
You cannot ask for more. Well, I couldn't ask for more today. Bob Ward being here with me. Thank you again. I very much appreciate it. Folks, a little inside all here. Bob's on vacation, and he was kind enough to get dressed and to come in and spend some time with us.
My pleasure.
So
Absolutely.
I appreciate it, and hope to see you again very, very soon. Thanks to all of you, and be sure that you continue to follow us on social, and we'd love it if on YouTube you would subscribe, and we will look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Kerrigan and Company. To find out who will keep me company and be my co-host on the next episode, be sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok. Kerrigan and Company is recorded at the Big Night Studios at the TD Garden in Boston. You can view the podcast on YouTube and listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure you tell a friend. The executive producer of Kerrigan and Company is David Thompson. Our engineer is Peter Hurley, and our social media managers are Grace Kerrigan, Colby Thompson, and Riley Thompson. See you next time.